Marriage, I once thought, was like a shipping manifest. Double-checked, never delivered quite as promised. 3 years into mine with Taryn Wolf, I was starting to think someone had switched the cargo labels entirely. My name is Miles Carter, 29 years old, and I coordinate logistics for a mid-sized freight company in Queens. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps our aging apartment afloat. Taryn manages social media for fitness brands, all protein powders, workout gear, and carefully staged photos that make our cramped one-bedroom look like a wellness retreat. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday in March. I came home from work to find Taryn sprawled on our second-hand couch, phone glued to her face, giggling at something on the screen. Her workout clothes were pristine, no sweat stains, no evidence she'd actually used that gym membership she insisted we couldn't afford to cancel. "Good day?" I asked, dropping my keys on the kitchen counter. She didn't look up. I waited. In the old days, she would have launched into stories about difficult clients or funny DMs. Now I got single syllables in the back of her phone case. "What's so funny?" I tried again. "Just work stuff." She angled the screen away from me. "You wouldn't get it." That stung more than it should have. Taryn had always been the social one, the networker, the person who could turn a casual conversation into a business opportunity. I was the guy who made sure things got from point A to point B without falling apart. Different skills, but I'd never felt stupid about it before. Over the next few weeks, the pattern solidified. Taryn would disappear for hours at a time, claiming gym sessions or brand meetings. She'd come home energized in a way I hadn't seen in months, scrolling through her phone with the intensity of a day trader watching the markets. When I asked about her day, she'd give me that same dismissive, "you wouldn't get it" line. The late-night parties started in April. Taryn would announce them an hour before people arrived, giving me just enough time to clear out if I didn't want to deal with her fitness industry friends. They were all the same type, artificially tanned, obsessed with their own reflections, speaking in hashtags and brand partnerships. "Miles works in shipping," Taryn would explain when someone asked what I did, her tone suggesting I transported livestock instead of coordinating complex supply chains. Very blue-collar. I started staying late at work on party nights. My colleague Lola noticed. "Wife having another Instagram convention?" she asked one Thursday, as I pretended to organize already organized files. Lola was 32, sharp as a razor, and had never married despite multiple offers. She claimed it was because she'd seen too many good men turn into doormats. I was starting to understand what she meant. "Something like that," I said. "You know you don't have to hide here, right? It's your apartment, too." "Easier this way, less drama." Lola gave me a look that could have melted steel. "Miles, honey, when you start avoiding your own home, that's not avoiding drama. That's living in it." The breaking point came on a Saturday in May. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard Taryn's voice from the bedroom, low and breathy in a way that made my stomach clench. "God, yes, just like that," she whispered into her phone. "I can't wait to feel you inside me again." I stood frozen, coffee mug halfway to my lips. Through the thin bedroom wall, I could hear every word. "Jake's bigger, but you know exactly what I like," she continued. "Maybe this time we can get Drew to join us properly instead of just watching." Jake and Drew, the twin trainers from her gym, the ones who'd been showing up at our parties, flexing for her camera and treating our apartment like their personal photo studio. I set down the mug and walked out. Not dramatically, I just left. Went to the bodega on the corner, bought a newspaper I didn't read, and sat on a bench until my hands stopped shaking. When I came back an hour later, Taryn was in the shower, singing off-key like nothing had happened. Her phone was on the nightstand, screen down but still warm. That night, she announced her next adventure. "I'm going to Vegas next weekend," she said over takeout Chinese. "Girls' trip? Business networking?" "Which girls?" I asked, though I already knew. "Some of the brand ambassadors. You wouldn't know them." "Jake and Drew are going too?" She paused, chopsticks halfway to her mouth. They might be there. It's industry stuff, Miles. Lots of people go to these things. Right. Industry stuff. She set down her food and looked at me with that expression I'd come to recognize, the one that said I was being unreasonable for existing in my own life. Look, if this bothers you so much, maybe you should just walk away, she said. I'm not going to stop living my life because you're insecure. Walk away. As if 3 years of marriage was a subscription service I could cancel with a phone call. Enjoy Vegas, I said. She smiled, thinking she'd won. I will. That Tuesday, Drew posted a gym selfie that changed everything. He was flexing in a mirror, all fake tan and protein powder confidence. But in the reflection behind him, you could see into the hotel room. Taryn was there, arms wrapped around Jake's neck, kissing him like the world was ending. The timestamp showed they'd been there 2 days already. Her girls' trip had started with the boys. I screenshotted the image before Drew realized his mistake and deleted it. Then I sat in my cubicle, staring at proof of what I'd already known, and started laughing. Not the bitter, broken kind of laughter, the kind that comes when a complicated problem suddenly has a very simple solution. Lola appeared at my desk with coffee and concern. You look either enlightened or psychotic. Which should I be worried about? She told me to walk away if I didn't like it, I said, showing her the screenshot. Lola studied the image, her expression shifting from confusion to fury to something that might have been pride. And? I'm going to take her advice. About damn time, she said. Need help packing? That night, I started dismantling our shared life with the same methodical precision I used to coordinate shipping routes. I canceled our joint lease agreement online, something Taryn had never bothered to read carefully enough to know I could do unilaterally with 30 days' notice. I removed my name from the utilities, the internet, the streaming services she thought were magic boxes that just worked forever. I redirected my direct deposit to a new account at a different bank, moved my clothes and my few personal possessions to a storage unit across town. The furniture could stay. Most of it was hers anyway, bought with money from brand partnerships I'd helped her land by playing the supportive husband in her content. The hardest part was writing the note. I went through a dozen drafts before settling on something simple. I took your advice, did what you suggested. Enjoy Vegas. P.S. The landlord needs the keys by Friday. I left it on her pillow next to a printed copy of Drew's deleted Instagram post, the timestamp clearly visible. Then I packed my truck and drove away from 3 years of marriage without looking back. The storage unit smelled like dust and broken dreams, but it was mine. All mine. For the first time in months, I was in a space where nobody would tell me I wouldn't get it, or dismiss my presence as blue-collar background noise. Lola had offered her couch, but I'd declined. This wasn't about finding a soft place to land. It was about proving I could land on my feet. I rented a small efficiency apartment in Astoria, nothing fancy but clean and quiet. The kind of place where neighbors minded their own business and the super didn't let random people with sob stories into your unit. Brady, the building super, was a 60-something ex-Marine who'd seen enough of life's drama to appreciate a man who handled his business quietly. You running from something or toward something? He asked as he handed me the keys. Both, I said. He nodded like that made perfect sense. Good answer. Rent's due on the 1st. Garbage goes out Tuesday, and I don't give a shit what you do as long as you don't make me care. Perfect. While Taryn was posting poolside selfies with her gym boys, I was setting up my new life. It was surprisingly easy once I stopped thinking of it as destruction and started seeing it as construction, building something better from the ground up. The phone calls started on Wednesday. Miles, what the hell is going on? Taryn's mother, Mrs. Wolfe, had never liked me, but she'd tolerated me as long as I made her daughter happy. Taryn is beside herself. She says you abandoned her? I took her advice, I said, putting the phone on speaker while I assembled my new coffee table. She told me to walk away if I didn't like the situation. So, I walked. That's not what she meant, and you know it. Then maybe she should have been more specific. Mrs. Wolf launched into a lecture about marriage and commitment and working through problems. I let her talk while I tightened screws and tried not to laugh. The woman whose daughter was currently tongue-deep in a Vegas threesome wanted to lecture me about commitment. "Are you even listening to me?" she demanded. "Every word. You're saying I should have stayed with a wife who told me to leave if I didn't like her cheating. Very traditional values, Mrs. Wolf." The line went quiet. Then, "Cheating? What are you talking about?" I'd wondered if Taryn had told her mother the truth. Apparently not. "Ask your daughter about Jake and Drew," I said. "Ask her about the hotel room in Vegas. Ask her why her business trip looks a lot like a porn audition." I hung up before she could respond. Thursday brought a different kind of satisfaction. I was at work, actually getting things done for the first time in weeks, when Lola appeared with her laptop and a grin that could have powered half of Queens. "You need to see this," she said, pulling up Taryn's Instagram. The latest post was a carefully staged photo of Taryn by a pool, all fake smile and strategic angles. But the comments section was a battlefield. "Isn't this supposed to be a business trip? Where's your husband? Thought you were married? Those aren't girls in your stories, hun." Someone had connected the dots between her posts and the boys' posts. The timeline didn't match her girls' trip story, and her followers were calling her out. "It gets better," Lola said, scrolling to the brand partnership posts. "Look at the engagement rates." Taryn's sponsored content was tanking. Comments were either calling out the obvious lie or making jokes about her business networking. The fitness brands she represented were all about authenticity and lifestyle alignment. Having their ambassador exposed as a married woman on a private vacation with 2 trainers wasn't exactly on brand. "I may have helped things along," Lola admitted. "Sent some screenshots to a few gossip accounts. You know, just to make sure people had all the facts." I stared at her. "You didn't." "I absolutely did." "What?" "She told you to walk away, right? I'm just making sure the path is clear." Friday afternoon, my phone exploded. 17 missed calls from Taryn, 43 text messages ranging from confused to angry to desperate. I read them while eating lunch at my desk, each one more unhinged than the last. "Miles, where are you?" "The apartment is empty. What happened?" "Call me now. This isn't funny. You can't just leave. I'm coming home. We need to talk. The landlord called me about rent. What did you do? Miles, answer me. You ruined everything. I'm going to destroy you. Please just call me back." The last message had come in an hour ago. "I'm at the airport. We're going to fix this." I forwarded the entire conversation to Lola, then blocked Taryn's number. "Smart move," Lola said. "But you know she's going to show up at your old place, right?" "Probably. Good thing I don't live there anymore." "What about work? She knows where you work." I'd thought about that. She's never set foot in this building. Too blue-collar for her image. Besides, security won't let anyone up without an appointment. "And if she makes an appointment? Then I'll be in a meeting. Permanently." Lola laughed, but her expression stayed serious. "Miles, I need to ask you something. Are you doing this for revenge or are you doing this to get free?" It was a good question. The honest answer was probably both. But the revenge part felt cleaner, more justified. "Does it matter?" I asked. "It might. Revenge has a way of eating people alive. Freedom, though, that's something you can build on." I thought about that while I finished my sandwich. 3 days ago, I'd been a man hiding in his own life, afraid to come home, making excuses for someone who treated him like an inconvenience. Now, I was sitting in my own space, making my own choices, watching the consequences of someone else's actions play out exactly as they should. "Freedom," I said finally. "The revenge is just a bonus." That night, I celebrated my new independence by doing something I hadn't done in months. I went out. Not to a bar or a club, but to a bookstore. I bought 3 novels I'd been meaning to read, grabbed coffee from a place that didn't know my order by heart, and sat in a corner reading until they closed. No one texted me asking where I was. No one needed me to explain myself or justify my choices. No one told me I wouldn't get it. For the first time in years, I felt like myself. Saturday morning brought a phone call from Brady. "You got a visitor," he said without preamble. "Blonde, loud, claims to be your wife. She's standing in the lobby demanding I let her up." Through the phone, I could hear Taryn's voice in the background, shrill and demanding. "He's my husband. You have to let me see him." "Want me to call the cops?" Brady asked. "Not yet. Tell her I'll be down in 5 minutes." I took my time getting dressed. Jeans, a clean shirt, sneakers, the kind of outfit Taryn used to criticize for being too casual when we went anywhere that mattered to her. Today, it felt like armor. Taryn was pacing the lobby like a caged animal when I stepped off the elevator. 3 days in Vegas had given her a tan that looked more orange than golden, and her hair was flat on one side like she'd slept on a plane. She looked exhausted, desperate, and furious all at once. "Miles!" She rushed toward me, arms outstretched like we were lovers reuniting instead of a cheating wife confronting the husband she'd driven away. "Thank God. I've been trying to reach you for hours." "I got your messages," I said, not moving to meet her embrace. "All 43 of them." She stopped short, arms still extended, confusion replacing relief on her face. "Why didn't you answer? I was worried sick." "Were you? Between Jake and Drew, I mean. Must have been hard to find time to worry." The color drained from her fake tan. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshot of Drew's deleted Instagram post. Her face went through a fascinating series of expressions: shock, recognition, panic, and finally, anger. "You're spying on me now?" "Drew posted it publicly. I just happened to see it before he realized he'd accidentally documented your business trip." "It's not what it looks like." "Really? Because it looks like you're making out with Jake while Drew takes pictures. What else could it possibly look like?" She glanced around the lobby, suddenly aware that Brady was watching from behind his newspaper, and a couple of other residents were pretending not to eavesdrop. "Can we please go upstairs and talk about this privately?" "I don't live upstairs anymore." "What do you mean you don't live upstairs? That's our apartment." "No, that's your apartment. I took your advice and walked away, remember? The lease is in your name now. Congratulations on your independence." The panic was back, stronger this time. "Miles, you can't just leave. We're married. We have responsibilities." "You're right. We do. Or we did. Like the responsibility not to cheat on each other. Like the responsibility to treat each other with basic respect. Like the responsibility to be honest about business trips that are actually private vacations." "It wasn't a private vacation." Her voice echoed in the lobby, and Brady didn't even pretend to read his newspaper anymore. He was watching us with the fascination of someone observing a particularly dramatic nature documentary. "Then what was it, Taryn? Explain to me how a girl's trip ended up with you kissing Jake in a hotel room while Drew documented it for social media." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. For someone who made a living crafting perfect social media narratives, she seemed remarkably unable to construct a believable story. "We were just..." "It was just what? Just cheating? Just lying? Just treating your marriage like a joke while you played house with 2 meatheads?" "They're not meatheads." The words came out before she could stop them, and we both knew she'd just confirmed everything I'd accused her of. "Right," I said. "They're sophisticated business partners. Is that why you were telling Jake how much bigger he is than Drew?" Very professional conversation. Her face went white. "You heard that?" "I heard everything, Taryn. The phone closeness, the planning, the comparisons. I heard my wife talking to other men the way she used to talk to me. So when you told me to walk away if I didn't like it, I figured that was the sanest advice you'd given me in months. She started crying then, big dramatic sobs that might have worked on me 6 months ago. Now they just looked calculated, performed for the growing audience in the lobby. Miles, please. I made a mistake. I was confused and lonely, and they were paying attention to me. I was paying attention to you. I was working 60-hour weeks to keep us afloat while you played influencer with my money. It wasn't like that. No? Then how was it? Explain to me how abandoning your marriage for a threesome in Vegas was actually about feeling lonely. She couldn't. Instead, she switched tactics, grabbing my arm with both hands. I'll end it with them. I'll delete their numbers. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. I looked down at her hands on my arm, then back up at her face. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. She looked genuinely desperate, genuinely afraid. But then I remembered the sound of her voice on that phone call, the dismissive way she'd treated me for months, the casual cruelty of telling me to leave if I didn't like her cheating. Taryn, I said gently, there's nothing to fix. You told me exactly what you wanted. You wanted me gone if I couldn't handle your new lifestyle. So I'm gone. I pulled my arm free and headed for the door. Where are you going? She called after me. Out. It's Saturday. I'm free to go wherever I want. Miles, wait! But I was already outside, breathing the crisp morning air and feeling lighter than I had in years. Behind me, I could hear her sobbing in the lobby, probably hoping Brady would feel sorry for her and give her information about where I'd gone. Brady was ex-Marine. He'd seen manipulation before. I walked to the coffee shop where I'd read the night before, ordered something complicated and expensive, and settled in with one of my new books. My phone stayed silent. The blocked number feature was working perfectly. For the first time in months, I was exactly where I wanted to be, doing exactly what I wanted to do, with no one to answer to but myself. It felt like victory. Monday morning brought a new wrinkle. Taryn had found my workplace. She's in the lobby, Lola said, appearing at my desk with coffee and barely contained glee. Full makeup, designer workout gear, carrying a bag from that expensive smoothie place downtown. I think she's planning a siege. Through the office windows, I could see her pacing near the security desk, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing dramatically. She'd dressed for maximum impact, the kind of outfit that screamed successful influencer to anyone who didn't know that her brand deals were currently imploding. How long has she been there? 20 minutes. Security won't let her up without an appointment, and she refuses to leave. She keeps saying it's a family emergency. Technically, it is. Her family's emergency is that I'm not enabling it anymore. Lola grinned. Want me to handle this? What did you have in mind? Trust me. I've been waiting months for this opportunity. I watched from the window as Lola emerged from the elevator, carrying a large protein shake and wearing her most innocent expression. She approached Taryn with what looked like genuine concern, gesturing toward the smoothie bag like she was asking about the brand. The conversation lasted about 30 seconds. Then, in what appeared to be a completely accidental stumble, Lola tripped and sent her protein shake flying directly onto Taryn's pristine white workout outfit. The shriek was audible through the office windows. Lola immediately began apologizing profusely, offering napkins and making a huge show of trying to help clean up the mess. Taryn was frantically dabbing at the stains, which were spreading across her designer top like abstract art. Security approached, and I could see Lola explaining what had happened. Just a clumsy accident, so sorry. These things happen. Within minutes, they were escorting a dripping, furious Taryn toward the exit. Lola returned 20 minutes later with a fresh coffee and a satisfied smile. Oops, she said. That was beautiful. What did you say to her? I told her I was Miles Carter's girlfriend and asked if she needed directions to the nearest gym. She started explaining that she was your wife and I was nobody, so I figured she needed a protein shower to cool down. You told her you were my girlfriend? Had to sell the bit. Don't worry, I made it clear that you're much happier now. Really drove the point home. The afternoon brought a different kind of entertainment. Jake and Drew, apparently back from Vegas and dealing with their own social media fallout, decided to pay me a visit. I was loading boxes into my truck after work when they appeared in the parking lot, all swagger and barely contained aggression. "You Miles?" Jake was the bigger one with the kind of artificial bulk that came from spending more time with supplements than with actual weights. "Depends who's asking." "We're asking." Drew positioned himself to block my path to the truck. "We need to talk." "About what? Your Instagram photography skills? Because that hotel room shot was really artistic." Jake's face darkened. "You think you're funny?" "I think I'm tired. You two want something, or are we just here to flex at each other?" "We want you to stop spreading lies about Taryn," Drew said. "She's a good person who made one mistake." "One mistake? Which one? Cheating on her husband, lying about it, or getting caught because you posted evidence on social media?" "It's not cheating if the marriage was already over," Jake said. "Interesting theory. When exactly did my marriage end? Before or after my wife told me to leave if I didn't like her fucking both of you?" They exchanged glances, clearly not expecting me to be this direct. "Look, man," Drew tried a different approach. "Taryn's career is getting destroyed because of this drama. She's losing sponsors, getting hate comments. Can't you just let it go?" "Let what go? I didn't destroy her career. I just stopped participating in the lie. If her sponsors don't like the real Taryn, maybe she should have thought about that before the Vegas threesome." "We should kick your ass," Jake said, taking a step closer. I looked at him. 6'2", probably 220, all gym muscle and protein powder confidence. Then I looked at Drew, slightly smaller, but equally convinced of his own intimidation factor. Finally, I looked around the parking lot, noting the security cameras, the evening commuters walking to their cars, and the general stupidity of starting a fight in broad daylight. "You could try," I said. "But then you'd be the guys who beat up a logistics coordinator because your girlfriend's husband divorced her for cheating. Great look for your personal brands." "She's not our girlfriend," Drew said quickly. "Right. She's just someone you both sleep with. Much better." Jake was getting redder by the minute. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know Taryn was planning threesomes while I was working to pay for the apartment where you guys had your little photo shoots. I know she was comparing your dick sizes over the phone while I was in the next room. I know you're both too stupid to realize that posting evidence of an affair on social media might have consequences." "That's enough," Jake said, raising his fist. "Is it?" I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Go ahead, Jake. Show everyone how you handle conflict. I'm sure your sponsors would love to see their brand ambassador committing assault in a parking lot." He froze, fist still raised, suddenly aware that we had an audience. Several people had stopped to watch, and at least 2 of them were also recording. "Smart choice," I said. "Now, unless you want this conversation to go viral, I suggest you two find something better to do with your time. Maybe work on your reading comprehension so you understand what permanent means when someone blocks your girlfriend's number." I got in my truck and drove away, leaving them standing in the parking lot looking like exactly what they were. 2 overgrown children who just realized that actions have consequences. That night, Lola called with an update. "Your wife tried to seduce you back," she said without preamble. "What?" "Brady called me. Apparently she bribed someone in your old building to let her into your old apartment. She was waiting in the bed when the new tenant came home. Poor guy thought he was being robbed. Please tell me you're joking." I wish I was. She was wearing lingerie and had candles lit and everything. Very romantic if you ignore the fact that you don't live there anymore, and she technically broke into someone else's apartment. What happened? New tenant called the cops. Brady had to explain the whole situation. She's lucky they didn't arrest her for breaking and entering. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. The image of Taryn posed seductively in a stranger's bed, waiting for a husband who'd moved out a week ago, was too absurd to process any other way. "It gets better," Lola continued. Brady told her exactly what he thought of her little performance. Something about disrespecting a good man and getting what she deserved. She tried to argue with him. She argued with Brady? Apparently, she told him he didn't understand the situation. He told her he understood it perfectly. She was a cheating wife who'd driven away a decent husband and was now harassing strangers because she couldn't accept the consequences of her choices. "I need to send Brady a fruit basket. He'd probably prefer beer. The point is, she's escalating. This isn't going away quietly." She was right. Taryn had always been dramatic, but this was beyond her usual theatrics. She was genuinely spiraling, and desperate people made unpredictable choices. "What do you think she'll try next?" "I don't know," Lola said. "But whatever it is, document everything. And Miles? Maybe it's time to make this official." "Official?" "Divorce papers. End this cleanly before she does something really stupid." I'd been avoiding that word, even in my own head. Divorce felt so final, so much like admitting failure. But Taryn had already ended our marriage in that Vegas hotel room. I was just making it legal. "You're right," I said. "I'll call a lawyer tomorrow." "Good. And Miles? For what it's worth, I think you're handling this perfectly. You're not trying to hurt her. You're just refusing to let her hurt you anymore." After I hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment, thinking about the man I'd been 6 months ago. That version of Miles would have been devastated by today's confrontation, would have spent the night wondering if he was being too harsh, if he should give Taryn another chance. This version of Miles poured himself a beer, ordered pizza, and started reading his book. Some changes, I was learning, were worth fighting for. The end came on a Thursday night in June, with a thunderstorm that seemed designed for dramatic effect. I was in my apartment, actually enjoying the rain against the windows, when Brady called. "Your ex-wife and her muscle-bound boyfriends are in the lobby," he said. "They're demanding I let them up to retrieve her belongings. I told them you don't live here, but they're not buying it." Through my window, I could see Taryn's car in the parking lot, Jake and Drew flanking her like bodyguards. She was gesturing wildly, clearly working herself into the kind of frenzy that preceded her worst decisions. "Want me to call the cops?" Brady asked. "Not yet. Let me come down." "You sure? These boys look like they're spoiling for a fight. I'm counting on it." I'd been expecting this confrontation for weeks. Taryn's social media presence had completely collapsed. The fitness brands had quietly dropped her. The gossip blogs had moved on to fresh drama, and her follower count was hemorrhaging daily. Jake and Drew were dealing with their own fallout, their personal training businesses suffering as word spread about their role in the affair. Desperate people with nothing left to lose were the most dangerous kind. I took the elevator down, but instead of going to the lobby, I stopped at the building's back entrance. Brady met me there with a grim smile and a small package. "Thought you might want these," he said, handing me what looked like a gym bag. "Found it in the dumpster behind their apartment building. Seems they've been evicted." Inside the bag was everything I needed. Printed emails between Taryn and her former sponsors, showing exactly how she'd been violating her contracts. Screenshots of her private messages with Jake and Drew, planning not just the Vegas trip but several other business meetings that had nothing to do with fitness brands, and, most damning of all, evidence that she'd been using our joint credit card to pay for hotel rooms where she'd been cheating for months. "How did you—" "Building superintendent network," Brady said. "We talk. Turns out your wife made a lot of enemies when she started treating service workers like they were invisible. People remember that kind of thing." The lobby confrontation was already in progress when we arrived. Taryn was in full performance mode, tears streaming down her face as she explained to anyone who would listen how her cruel husband had abandoned her in her time of need. "He just left," she was saying to Mrs. Patterson from 3B. "No explanation, no chance to work things out. I came home from a business trip and everything was gone." Mrs. Patterson, who'd been married for 40 years and had no patience for drama, looked skeptical. "Business trip with those two?" she asked, nodding toward Jake and Drew. "They're my business partners." "Honey," Mrs. Patterson said gently, "I've been married long enough to know what business partners look like. Those aren't business partners." Jake stepped forward, all artificial charm and flexed biceps. "Ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," I said, walking into the lobby with Brady beside me, "is thinking anyone here believes your bullshit." Taryn spun around, her tear-streaked face lighting up with relief and fury in equal measure. "Miles, finally! We need to talk." "No, we don't. We needed to talk 6 months ago when you were planning your Vegas adventure. We needed to talk when you were using our credit card to pay for hotel rooms with your boyfriends. We needed to talk when you told me to leave if I didn't like your cheating, but you weren't interested in talking then." "That's not fair." "Fair?" I opened the bag Brady had given me and pulled out the printed emails. "Let's talk about fair. Is it fair that you violated every contract you had with your sponsors? Is it fair that you used our joint finances to fund your affairs? Is it fair that you lied to everyone, including your own mother, about what really happened in Vegas?" I started reading from the emails, my voice carrying clearly through the lobby. Taryn's private messages to Jake, explicit and detailed. Her conversations with Drew about how to hide their relationship from sponsors. Her plans for future business trips that were actually elaborate cheating schemes. "Stop," Taryn whispered, but I kept reading. The lobby had filled with residents, drawn by the drama and staying for the show. Someone was recording on their phone. Mrs. Patterson was shaking her head in disgust. Even Jake and Drew looked uncomfortable as the full scope of Taryn's deception became clear. "The best part," I continued, pulling out the credit card statements, "is that she charged everything to our joint account. The hotels, the dinners, even the lingerie she wore for her Instagram photos with these two. I was literally paying for my wife to cheat on me." "That's enough." Jake stepped forward, fists clenched. "You're humiliating her." "I'm telling the truth. She humiliated herself." "We should kick your ass," Drew added, moving to flank me. "You should," I agreed. Two professional trainers beating up a logistics coordinator because their girlfriend's husband exposed her lies. Great optics. I'm sure the video will go viral. I nodded toward the phones that were now openly recording the confrontation. Jake and Drew looked around, suddenly aware that they were being documented, their reputations hanging in the balance. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, addressing all three of them. "You're going to leave. You're going to stop harassing me, stop showing up at my work, stop trying to break into apartments I don't live in. You're going to accept that actions have consequences and that sometimes, when you tell someone to walk away, they actually do it." "You can't just destroy my life," Taryn screamed, her composure finally cracking completely. "I made one mistake." "One mistake?" I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through the screenshots Brady had provided. March 15th, hotel charge for $200. March 22nd, another hotel, different location. April 3rd, April 10th, April 18th. Should I keep going? Because I've got receipts going back 6 months, and that's just what I found in one bag. The lobby was silent, except for the sound of rain against the windows and Taryn's increasingly desperate sobs. "You want to know what your one mistake was?" I asked. "It wasn't cheating. It wasn't lying. It wasn't treating me like garbage for months while you played house with your gym buddies. Your mistake was thinking I was too weak to do anything about it." I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "Oh, and Taryn, I'm not destroying your life. I'm just not helping you maintain the lie anymore. There's a difference." As I reached the exit, Jake made his move. He lunged forward, swinging wildly, more angry than skilled. I sidestepped easily. Logistics coordination requires good spatial awareness, and he stumbled past me into the lobby's decorative plant display. The crash was spectacular. Dirt, pottery shards, and one very expensive-looking fern scattered across the marble floor. Jake emerged from the wreckage looking like a mud wrestler, his dignity as destroyed as the landscaping. The lobby erupted in laughter. Mrs. Patterson was cackling like a teenager. Brady was grinning so wide I thought his face might split. Even some of the people recording were giggling behind their phones. Drew moved to help Jake up, slipped on the wet marble, and went down in a tangle of limbs and potting soil. More laughter, more phones capturing every moment of their humiliation. Taryn stood in the middle of it all, watching her boyfriends flail around in the dirt while her neighbors laughed at the spectacle she'd created. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Enjoy your new life," I said, and walked out into the storm. Behind me, I could hear Brady addressing the crowd. "Show's over, folks. Nothing to see here but 3 people learning that choices have consequences." The next morning, the video was everywhere. Jim Brosvy's Gravity was trending on TikTok. The local news picked up the story as a human interest piece about modern relationships and social media drama. Jake and Drew became unwilling internet celebrities, their names forever associated with the phrase, decorative plant takedown. Taryn's remaining social media presence evaporated overnight. The few sponsors who hadn't already dropped her ran for the hills. Her Instagram account went private, then disappeared entirely. I learned all this from Lola, who'd become something of a social media detective in the aftermath. "They moved out of the city," she reported over coffee. "Jake's working at a gym in New Jersey. Drew's selling supplements online. Taryn's living with her mother in Connecticut." "Good for them," I said, and meant it. "Maybe they'll figure out how to be honest with each other. What about you? What's next?" I looked around the coffee shop where I'd spent so many peaceful evenings, then at Lola, who'd become a genuine friend through all of this chaos. "I'm thinking about asking someone to dinner," I said. "Anyone I know?" "Maybe. She's smart, funny, has excellent aim with protein shakes, and she's never once told me I wouldn't understand something." Lola smiled. "She sounds perfect. Think she'll say yes?" Only one way to find out. 6 months later, I was sitting in the same coffee shop, reading the same kind of book, drinking the same complicated coffee. But everything was different. Lola was across from me, working on her laptop and occasionally looking up to make sarcastic comments about whatever she was reading. My divorce had been finalized with minimal drama. Taryn had signed everything without contest, apparently eager to close that chapter of her life. I'd kept nothing but my clothes, my books, and my dignity. It turned out that was all I really needed. "You know what I realized?" I said, closing my book. "What's that?" "Marriage really is like a shipping manifest. But the trick isn't getting it delivered as promised. The trick is knowing when to refuse delivery of damaged goods." Lola laughed. "That might be the most romantic thing you've ever said to me. Just wait until I compare our relationship to a well-organized supply chain. Now you're just showing off." Outside, it was starting to rain again, but we were warm and dry and exactly where we wanted to be. For the first time in years, I was living a life that belonged entirely to me, with someone who understood that the best partnerships were built on truth, respect, and the occasional well-timed protein shake assault. Some stories don't end with grand gestures or dramatic revelations. Sometimes they end with the quiet satisfaction of knowing that you chose yourself when it mattered most, and that choice led you exactly where you needed to be.